So now I'm not doing all the board questions, I'm just doing a few lengthy ones as some of them may have diagrams and little more of writing. The rest of them I will be doing with you in the Zoom class on next week. So right now I'm only doing a few of these questions of the board questions of sound. Then we will start with the next topic, that is refraction through lens. So here, sixth question, there is a diagram that can explain the question better. Why are concave reflectors or sound boards placed behind the speaker? So usually the speaker stands at the focus of this concave reflecting surface. So you know that when you talk, your sound does not only travel in the forward direction, but even people at the side and behind can hear what you're talking. That means sound waves travel in all directions. So because sound travels in all directions, now the sound that goes backward would be a waste in case you have a long audience, a long hall and a lot of audience. So this reflector will ensure that those sound is reflected back towards the audience. So greater sound energy will reach the audience and so the sound will be more audible. So you know, even in light you have done any object at the focus, from there after reflection the ray goes parallel to the principal axis. So here all these are sound waves which are going backward towards the wall behind. So due to the presence of this concave reflector, they are reflected, and rather than mixing up, they travel parallel to each other, due to which the audience can hear a more intense or louder sound because greater amount of energy is moving towards the audience. Greater amount of sound energy is moving towards the audience. That is what is written here. So you can copy down this answer in your notebook and draw this figure also to explain the use of reflectors or soundboard behind the speaker. Another question number 7 is about reverberations. Now when there is thunder, sometimes you would hear a continuous sound, like it seems like a drum, an empty drum, metallic drum is rolling on an uneven road or uneven surface. That sort of a continuous sound is heard when the thunder happens. Why that happens is, when the thunder occurs, when the lightning happens, then you see that there are many reflecting surfaces like buildings, there are some mountains in the nearby vicinity, all that. So there are multiple reflecting surfaces. All the reflections of sound does not reach our ear together. There is some lag between one sound. First the nearest reflecting surface, that sound will be heard. Then further off will be heard, and the farthest, that would be heard last. Sound after reflection from that surface which is farthest will take most time to reach us. So all this will happen continuously one behind the other. So that's why you hear a rolling sound or continuous sound. So if they ask you what is reverberations, if there are multiple reflections of sound from various distinct rigid objects, then the sound gets prolonged. This effect is known as reverberations. Example, a rolling continuous sound of thunder is heard due to its reflection from various objects like hills, tall buildings, etc. So this is the answer for question 6 and 7. Like I told you, I'm only doing 4 or 5 questions on the board right now in the video. The rest I will be doing with you in Zoom. Answers to question 9 and 12 on page 234, the theory questions from past board papers. So radar or radar, the full form is radio detection and ranging, quite similar to sonar. But in sonar what is used? Ultrasonic sound waves are used, and that is used in ships. There the sound waves are sent towards the bottom of the sea to detect presence of obstacles like submarines or to find the depth of the ocean floor. Now in this case, the radar, you can see them in the 15th August and 26th January, the Independence Day and Republic Day parade. You can see on those tanks, the army tanks, there is something rotating continuously. It's on a motor, it is rotating, That's actually a radar. From the radar, it works on the same principle of reflection, but in this case, radio waves or microwaves, that is electromagnetic waves, are used. They are sent in different directions. They are used basically to detect the presence of any incoming enemy plane. So if there is any obstacle, they get reflected back and is received by a receiver which is placed alongside the transmitter. So the person can detect the presence and distance of an incoming enemy plane. So that is radar. Works on the same principle of echo method, but of course the wave used is different. This is not sound waves. Even though it is coming in the chapter sound, this is not sound waves. These are electromagnetic waves. We will be learning this electromagnetic spectrum. In that you will see that besides the visible light, radio waves, microwaves, all of that is around us. But we can't see it because our eyes can only see a certain wavelength. So radio waves or microwaves are transmitted in space, which after reflection from the obstacle like an incoming enemy plane will be received by a receiver fitted besides the transmitter. So it's used to determine the direction and location of an enemy plane. Next question, we are going to question 12. Like I told you, we are not doing all the questions here. I will be doing it in the Zoom lecture. So in question 12, this is the same question you learned in 9th also, in sound chapter itself. Two characteristics of wave motion. This was one question which was marked important in standard 9. A wave is produced by a periodic disturbance at a point in the medium. That means there has to be a disturbance. For example, there has to be some vibration. That vibration is known as a disturbance. A wave is produced by a periodic disturbance at a point in the medium. And the second point is, due to propagation of the wave in a medium, particles of the medium vibrate about the mean position and energy is transferred at a constant speed from one particle to one place of the medium to the other. So last year also we had seen that it is not that energy or the sound is traveling only in one direction. It's basically when you speak or if there is an explosion, there is a huge disturbance produced in the medium just surrounding the place where the explosion took place. Now energy is transmitted in all directions, aage piche, upar niche, in all directions. So that is why it is not that the person only that side can hear. Person who is coming from that side or back or any place can hear the sound of that explosion. Because it is not something that is moving from one place to another. What is moving is the energy. The energy is traveling from one particle to the other particle, and as you go, you know that damping occurs due to presence of air or surrounding medium, and that's the reason why the sound becomes less and less with distance. So due to propagation of wave in a medium, particles of medium vibrate about their mean position and energy is transferred at a constant speed from one place of medium to another place. So this questions, these two answers also you note it down in your long books. So here, this is the last question I am going to do in the video session. The rest will be on Zoom. Question 17. The question asks you, like, two musical notes of the same pitch and loudness are played on violin and piano. Explain why the wave pattern is different for both. Now, you have to explain that the sound or the wave or the note that is produced does not consist of only the principal or fundamental note, but it has various subsidiary or secondary vibrations of different frequencies. So the subsidiary vibrations give the shape of the waveform. Since there are different number of subsidiary vibrations produced by different instruments, the shape of the waveform will differ, due to which the quality or timbre of sound will differ. So that I have explained here. The sound from instruments does not contain a note of a single frequency, but it contains a combination of vibrations of different frequencies and different amplitude. That I explained as first step. Now second step or second point, the vibration of lowest frequency and maximum amplitude is called the fundamental or principal vibration, and besides this there will be subsidiary or secondary vibrations which have frequency integer multiple of the principal vibration. That means if the principal vibration, let's say, has a frequency 200, so integer multiple of that, 200 hertz ka integer multiple may be 400, 600, 800, those vibrations are called secondary vibrations. Whereas the least frequency, 200 hertz, for that particular instrument, that particular note, that lowest frequency is the primary or principal or fundamental note. Different instruments, this third point is most important, it has to be there. Different instruments produce different subsidiary vibrations due to which the waveforms differ, the shape of the waveforms differ. So the quality or timbre will be different for different instruments, even if the note produced may have exactly the same loudness and same pitch. Same pitch means same fundamental frequency. Pitch depends on frequency, so the same fundamental frequency may be there, but different instruments, they produce different subsidiary vibrations, due to which the waveform differs, so quality or timbre will be different. So the same answer would be written if you are asked, why does a piano and a violin produce different quality or timbre, even though they are basic, that is the loudness, and pitch is same. So you have to explain the third point. Such answers, which are lengthy answers, are rarely asked, it's usually never asked. So all the other questions that we are doing in the board questions of sound, I will be taking it up next week in Zoom. So the rest of it are all objective, we will do it by discussing it. So you will learn this chapter thoroughly and keep it. From Monday onwards, different batches, different Zoom classes would be held next week. So prepare sound so that it's ready for next week's test. So when we will start with the next topic, that is refraction through a lens. Now when we talk about lens, immediately what comes in our mind would be the spectacle lens or the eye lens. So that's also one type of lens. It's basically a transparent substance. It's a transparent refracting medium bounded by either two spherical surfaces or one spherical and one plane surface. So if you are asked what is a lens, the definition of the lens is given there. There are two types of lens. You've already learned basics of lens in 8th standard, so you know it. But there are two types, that is the convex or converging lens and the concave or diverging lens. So those two types of lenses are basically different in the nature. If you take a convex lens and place it in sunlight, and the rays of light of the sun are falling on a convex lens, it will cause the rays to converge. And if you place a piece of very thin paper, and if adequate sunlight is converging at the focus where the paper is placed, you will see that the paper could catch fire. So that is a convex lens. Whereas a concave lens, this won't happen, because the rays of light which is coming from very far off objects like the sun, which are assumed to be parallel, when they fall on a concave lens, they do not converge, they diverge, they move away. So the nature of the two types of lenses are different. Now for our syllabus, we only have biconvex and biconcave lens. But if you are asked what are the various types of convex or converging lens, first, what is a convex lens? You will always find that their edges are sharp and they are thicker at the center or middle. So those lenses will always have sharp edges and they will be thicker or fatter at the center. Whereas concave lens, it is different. They will be having flat ends. They are not sharp ends like this. And they are thinner at the center. So they are thinner at the center. So here you have three types of convex lens. Biconvex, both sides are bulging out. So both are spherical surfaces. This is made of one sphere and this surface is made of another sphere. So both are spherical surfaces. Your definition said that it could be two spherical surfaces or one spherical and one plane surface. So biconvex, both are part of two spheres, two different spheres, both are spherical surfaces. Then you have plano, but it is convex lens because it's a converging lens. One end is flat and one side is spherical. So this is made out of a sphere, whereas this is flat. So because one side is flat, it is called plano, and since the other side it is bulging out, it is called convex. So plano convex lens. And the last one, you have one side is bulging out, and the other one, this is not called bulging out, this is bulging in. Because with respect to the first surface, the second surface is coming towards it. So therefore, this is concave, whereas this is convex. So overall it's a convex lens, it's a converging lens, but it is a concavo-convex lens. Concavo-convex lens. See, now if you look at this surface, we are considering this surface similar to this side, whereas the other side is not like this, it is again bulging out like this. So it's a combination of this surface and this surface. So that is why it is called a concavo-convex lens. But what will it do? It will converge the rays of light. So it is convex. Now types of concave or diverging lens, again three figures. Firstly, understand the basic difference. Here the edges are sharp, here the edges are flat. Here it is thicker at the center, here it is thinner at the center. So in this case, both the surfaces are spherical surfaces and both the surfaces are bulging inward. So the center is thin. So this is biconcave lens. Bi-concave lens. Concave because the rays of light after passing, parallel rays after passing through the lens will diverge. So it's a diverging lens. The next one similar to this, one surface is flat and the other surface is bulging inward towards the first surface. So this is a plane surface and this is a part of the concave lens or a spherical surface. So this is called plano concave lens. So that's the plano concave lens. And now the last one, this surface is a part of the convex lens, whereas this surface is this same surface, it is bulging inward. So it is thinner at the center and little more thicker at the end, and the ends are not sharp, they are flat. So it is a concave lens, but because this surface is bulging out, so that is why it is called a convexo-concave lens. Both are spherical surfaces in this case, there is no plane surface, but it is a convexo-concave lens. So those are the different types of lens, but as I told you, we have figures and we have to learn only biconvex and biconcave lens. So topic is down in your long book, we will proceed with the chapter. Now students, in this part we are learning the action of a convex and a concave lens as a set of prism and glass lamp. So first we will see the convex lens. This is the shape of the convex lens. Actually it is little more spherical, but I have shown it sharp like it is shown in your textbooks. The top part is considered similar to a prism. The bottom part also similar to a prism, but the bottom one is inverted. And the central part is as good as a parallel-sided glass lamp. So if you just give it a curve, it appears like a convex lens. So this is why it is a converging lens, because you will see that rays A and rays C, after they are falling on the prism part, that's the triangular surfaces, those rays at this end it will bend towards the normal, and not here it will bend away from the normal because it is entering from glass to air. So it bends, it gains speed and bends away from the normal. So overall it will bend towards the base of the prism. The parallel ray will go bend towards the base. This already you have seen in refraction through plane surfaces. This part you have already seen in refraction through plane surfaces. Similarly, this ray, the first ray is entering a denser medium So it will bend towards the normal, and second ray will bend away from the normal. So again here the parallel ray is bending towards the base of the triangle, that is towards the base of the prism. So this makes the rays converge at a point on the principal axis. Now the central part is as good as a glass slab, parallel sided glass slab. And here you are showing a ray which is incident normally and travelling undeviated, so it goes straight. So the three rays meet at a point, when that point on the principal axis will be called principal focus. That we'll see later, what is the principal focus and its definition. Here we are trying to see how a convex lens is shown as a combination of two prisms and one glass slab, and why it has a converging nature. Convex lens, the parallel rays always converge. Why is it so? That is because of the nature of refraction that takes place in the prism. Now we go to the second one, that is diverging action of concave lens. Now the concave lens, if you consider this part, this is not a glass slab. This is, if you extend it, they will meet. So it's a part of a prism. The entire prism is not there, unlike in this case. The prism is actually, when you extend these two surfaces, they will meet. So the top part is a triangular prism. The bottom part also, this and this, if you extend, they will meet at a point. So that is also a triangular prism. Whereas the central part is the parallel sided glass slab. So the central part is a parallel sided glass slab. So in this case, the ray of light which is parallel, when it is entering a denser medium, it will bend towards the normal, and then when it goes from glass to air, from denser to rarer, it will bend away from the normal. So same thing happens like this. It is bending towards the base of the triangle or the base of the prism. So parallel ray bending and going towards the base. So this is giving it a diverging nature. So here also parallel ray bending towards the base of the prism or triangle. So when those two rays are extended backward, when they are produced backward, they appear to meet at a point on the principal axis, and that point is called the principal focus. Now a ray which falls normally means along the normal, on a parallel sided glass slab, it goes straight without any refraction. So that is why the overall nature of this lens is diverging. The diverging nature of the concave lens and converging nature of convex lens can be explained with this set of diagrams. This is important, can be asked how a convex lens is converging in nature. Then you will have to draw the diagram and explain this. See, now here we are seeing the figures of both the convex lens and concave lens as part of two spheres. This is the first surface of the lens. So this is one surface and this is the other surface. The left hand side one is called the first surface. So actually this is the first surface, or the lens is made out of this sphere forming this surface, the left surface, which is the first surface. So this sphere ka center is C1. Same way, this is the second or the right hand side surface of the lens. Right surface of the lens is the second surface. So that is why this sphere from which that second surface is made is called sphere 2, and its center is denoted by C2. So you have to remember that in a convex lens, since this is the first surface, this is C1, C1 is on that side, and this right hand side surface, the second surface is here, so this is C2. So it has to be named correctly, don't name it C1 and C2 ulta. Now this is the part which is cut out and which forms the convex lens. Now in case of a concave lens, this is the first surface. The one on the left is the first surface. So this is C1 because this is the first sphere, and the right hand side surface of the concave lens is this surface, the right hand side surface. So this is made from the second sphere. So this is C2. So it is reversed. From convex and concave, the surfaces are reversed, first and second surface. So now we have to know some technical terms related to the lens. First of all, you have something called C2, C1. It's there for all the lens. Those are known as center of curvature of the lens. Then in center of the lens, you have got O, that is the optical center of the lens. The line passing through the two center of curvatures, that is the line going through C1 and C2, is the principal axis of the lens. So first we define centers of curvature C1 and C2. The center of the sphere from which that surface of the lens is made is called the center of curvature of that surface. So in this case, this sphere makes the second surface. This is the second surface. So C2 is the center of this sphere. So C2 is center of curvature of this surface. So same way, C1 is center of curvature of the other surface. Here also same thing, C1 is center of the sphere of which this first surface is made. So C1 is center of curvature. Similarly, C2 is center of curvature of the second surface. So any lens, when we are talking about lens, we are talking about biconvex and biconcave lens only here. So they are both spherical surfaces. Has two spherical surfaces, so there will be two centers of curvature. Any lens, this is the lens, the red part which is marked. So they will have two centers of curvature. Now radius of curvature, if there is a center and there is a sphere, there has to be a radius. So the radius of this sphere will be called R1, that is the radius of curvature of this surface, that is the first surface. And same too, this will have another radius, this is R2, this is the radius of curvature of the second surface, that is for the right hand side surface. Similarly here, this will have R1 as the radius. This is the radius of curvature of the first surface of the lens. And this will have any radius R2, which is the radius of curvature of the second surface of the lens. So the radius of the sphere from which that surface of the lens is made is called the radius of curvature of that surface. So radius of the sphere from which that surface of the lens is made is called the radius of curvature of that surface. Now it is not necessary that both the surfaces should have same or different, it can be anything. If the radius of curvature of both the surfaces are equal, that means if R1 and R2 are equal, that is if the radii of curvature of both the surfaces of the lens are equal, then such a lens is called equiconvex or equiconcave lens. See, such things are sometimes asked. What do you mean by equiconvex or equiconcave lens? So then you have to immediately remember that this lens is a lens in which the radius of curvature of both the surfaces, both the spherical surfaces of the lens is same. Such lens is called equiconvex or equiconcave lens. And this distance, O to C1, this distance is for a thin lens. Now if it is a thick lens, actually this distance is this distance from this point to C1 is the radius of curvature. But for a thin lens, the radius of curvature of that surface of the lens is equal to the distance between the center of curvature of that surface and the optical center. So whenever we consider lens like your eye lens, it is extremely thin lens. So then this distance is taken as center of the radius of curvature, O to C1. Even though actually speaking that is not the radius is slightly more. But for a very thin lens, in theory and for all purposes, we consider OC1 as the radius of curvature of this particular surface and OC2 as the radius of curvature of the second surface. So in our diagram, this is radius of curvature. So that's about radius of curvature. Remember what is underlined: equiconvex and equiconcave lens. Now there are some more technical terms, like the line joining the two center of curvature is called the principal axis. Then any ray which is passing through the optical center after incidence goes straight without deviation. Those points I will write now. That is also technical terms related to the lens. So if you have a ray coming straight like this, it goes undeviated. A ray which goes through the optical center of any lens goes undeviated. So in that case, divergence or convergence does not apply. So it is like you had in a glass slab, a ray incident along the normal was not getting refracted because angle of incidence was 0. In this case, a ray passing through the optical center goes undeviated. So we will continue with the technical terms. So principal axis, I had already explained that it is the line joining the centers of curvatures of the two surfaces of the lens. That is any line which is joining C1 and C2, whether it is convex or concave lens. Now optical center, this is very important. When we talk about optical center, we only generally talk about thin lens, because in our syllabus we are not going to talk anything about thick lens, even though there is a mention of what exactly happens in thick lens. So in a thin lens, if a ray of light is passing through a point on the principal axis such that it is going undeviated, the incident ray is going straight without any bending at all, then that point on the principal axis is called the optical center of the thin lens. Same thing whether it is convex or whether it is concave. So for a thin lens, it is a point on the principal axis of the lens such that a ray of light directed towards it passes undeviated through it. For all our diagrams, we consider only thin lens. We have ray diagrams of lens. So for all of them, we will consider only this figure. But since this is mentioned, we will just see the difference in a thick lens. If a ray of light is directed towards the optical center, means the dotted line is the actual direction of the incident ray. Then, if it is directed towards O, then that ray will actually emerge parallel to the incident ray produced. So for a thick lens, the optical center is a point on the principal axis of the lens such that a ray of light passing through the point emerges parallel to the direction. Emerging parallel, this and this rays are parallel. The dotted line is the incident ray produced without any refraction, whereas that is the actual divergent ray, and then after that refraction it is emerging parallel to incident ray produced. Same thing with a concave lens. So for both the lens, the definition would be the same. If you are asked just optical center of a lens, you will write for thin lens only. And if you are asked the figure, you will show this only. Only if they ask you for thick lens, which is till now they have never asked any time about thick lens, only then you will show that. But if they just ask you optical center, write this. So with that, we will stop today's class. The next video will be sent to you that will continue with lens.